What's up, boys and girls? My name is Aiden, and joining me today is everyone's favorite skateboarder dude. Today we are going to be learning a little bit about sound energy, and we will each be making our own drum and some drumsticks. So get your kits out, get ready, and let's jump straight in. So boys and girls, the first thing that we are going to be doing is we are going to be building this housing, which is the main cylinder and the main chamber for our drum. We're going to be attaching some discs at the bottom and at the top. Then we're going to move on from there by attaching our elastics to our drum skin, and then eventually attaching the drum skin with the elastics onto the chamber. And then finally we will end off with building our drumsticks, and then we will have our complete set. So boys and girls, once you have emptied your kits, you are going to find the following. You will have one corrugated cardboard strip, which is 50 by 420 millimeters. We are later going to be cutting it down the middle, which means we will eventually have two of these. We're also going to have the main housing, which is this big piece of corrugated cardboard. It is also in your kits. We're going to have two wooden rings, which will support our housing at a later stage, and you'll see what it's for in a moment. We're going to have 10 milliliters of wood glue, which is super cool. Make sure that doesn't dry out while you're working. In your kits, you are also going to have 12 of these large elastics. You're each going to have one drum skin. This is very important part. You're going to have 7 centimeters of our Curious gum, which is also known as industrial press stick, or just industrial putty. Very good and awesome stuff. You're going to have 2 bamboo skewers, which will be used in your drumsticks. You're also going to have 1 packet of maize meal, which will be used to take the stickiness out of your Curious gum at a little bit of a later stage. And then finally, we're going to have 1 375 millimeter long PVC piping. For this video, you will also need a craft knife. You will also need some scissors. If you have only one or the other, that is just fine. Both of them will do the same job just as effectively. And you will also need a pencil or a marker or pen of some kind. More than that, you will only need what is in your Curious kit, and then we can get going. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to grab our 50 by 420 millimeter strip of corrugated cardboard. We're going to put a ruler on it, and we are going to measure straight down the middle. We're going to measure from one side to the other. Because it is 50 across, you're going to measure 25. So we're going to go from there to 25 and make a mark. And then a little bit further down the corrugated cardboard, we're going to make another mark, also at 25, and then just join those two marks with a line. Be careful not to press too hard, or else you're gonna damage the integrity of the edges. Just run it nice and gently. As long as you can see it, it'll do the job just fine. And then once we are done with this, we're going to be cutting it using our craft or scissors. I personally prefer using a craft knife. If you're going to use one of these, make sure you're doing it with parent or teacher supervision, because sometimes they can be a bit sharp, and always use a cutting mat. Right, I'm then going to run it along the corrugated cardboard, along the line. If you prefer using a ruler because you are worried that you're not going to cut straight, that is perfectly fine too. But sometimes scissors would work just as well for this if you trust that a little bit more. And then all you're going to do is, since you've cut it and scored it, you can just snap it, fold it in half, and I'll do the trick. Fold it this way. There we go. And then it should come out just like that. I'm going to run the knife down just one more time, just get a nice clean edge. There we go. Like I said, we have now cut it into 2 smaller pieces, and both of them will be used in our housing. So you're now going to grab your housing, and as you can see, because of the storage, it is a little bit bent over here, but that's not a problem. It hasn't been completely folded, so be careful not to squeeze it. The drum skin is actually going to be folded this way. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to grab this piece, and at the bottom edge of one of the edges, you're going to take your wood glue. You can pull the plug off. Be careful not to lose that, or else you're going to have your glue drying on you. And be just nice and generous right on the edge. You don't want to have it anywhere in, you want it right on the edge. I'm going to apply some glue. Be nice and generous here. Remember, always go closer to the edge as you go. You can actually come with the tip and just spread it out a little bit, just to make sure that we have a nice big surface area that is going to be sticking. You're going to want to do this for the entire edge. Okay, I'm going to then pull a little bit of the glue in to create a bit of a vacuum. You can rub this off, it will come off of your fingers. Try not to get wood glue on your clothes. We don't advise it, but because it's water-based, getting it on your skin won't be too much of an issue. Maybe have a tissue on hand just to rub it off. So be careful of wood glue. It will dry very fast if the conditions are hot, but on a day like today that I'm recording this video, it's rather humid, so I have got a little bit of time. So once you've got the glue down, you're going to put one of your discs down on the surface that you're working, and the side that you've got glue on is going to sit flush up against it. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to have one of the sides attached first, and then just kind of roll it around. Should do the trick. You're going to want to keep it nice and tight. Make sure you're not losing any tension. As you can see, that's happening over there. That's really okay. I'm going to fold it down. I recommend holding this for a little while just to make sure that it's nice and tight. And then if you would like, maybe get a friend to help you with this process and let that set just a little bit more, and then we're going to move on to the other side. What will also help you here is if you grab one of your large elastics and just wrap it around the entire housing. Remember, you can get a friend to help you with this, it's not a problem. I'm going to fold this down. Roll it down all the way to the bottom so that it's pinching. You're going to want this right at the bottom, close to the edge, because if it's any further from the edge, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. It won't sit very well, and then all you're going to do is grab your disc and just shift it toward the cardboard so that it sits nice and flush. You might have to push it down, or in some areas like over there you can see there's a bit of a lip. There you actually want to pull it a bit closer to the edge. There we go. You can just wipe the excess wood glue away. Wood glue dries clear, so if you can see a little bit of it, it's not the end of the world. It will still look neat at the end. And you can leave this edge to dry. There you go. Leave that to dry for a good 20 to 30 minutes, and then we can continue on the other side. Before we move on to the top wooden cylinder, we're going to add a little bit more extra glue here on the flap, just on the inside. Be careful not to pull it out. We're going to just take our wood glue, again, remove the plug. Be careful not to have your wood glue dry out on you. You wouldn't want that. Just going to add a little bit more glue, being a little bit generous, but not too much. Just enough. And then closer to the top, you can actually spread it out a little bit more. So you can just go up and down, getting it spread out so that it hugs and gets tucked into all the corrugations, so you wouldn't want to miss anything. You can add another little bit of wood glue just if you're feeling a little bit like you're going to need a bit more, and that's totally okay. Again, don't forget to plug it up. You're going to just going to pull it in a little bit and then plug it up and wipe it off, and we're good to go. Again, like I said, you're going to have to be quick with this process if where you are working it's hot, but otherwise it is going to be fine. So we are then going to just pinch this a little bit to make it nice and tight. But before this dries too quickly, let's get going on the top cylinder. So we're going to add the top. So all you're going to do, before I get there, let's grab the glue again. Put that down. We're going to add glue on the inside of our cylinder. On the inside of our housing, again, right by the edge. The closer to the edge, the better, because that'll get us a good snug fit. Remember to plug up your glue. You don't want it drying out on you. Then you're going to grab your other wooden disc. You're going to slide it just on top, like so, nice and snug. And then you might have to pull these apart just a little bit while you're putting it in. That's okay. Now again, you're going to want it to sit nice and flush at the top, so you are going to have to do a little bit of shifting and moving. You're going to have to either in some areas pull down or push up. That's really okay. So like for example, that edge over here, it needs to move, so I'm going to shift it up like so. There we go. Bring that up and up and up, and then wipe all your wood glue off. Sorted. Then to just make sure that this dries and sets nice and strong, you're going to grab another one of your large elastics and just put it over, again, really close to the top. The close to the top, the better. So you're going to want to actually just roll them or just shift them like this. And that should be just fine, making it nice and tight, but not too tight. And not too close to the edge, or else it might just pop off and sneak up on you that way. As you can see, we've got a little bit of extra glue here. That's really not a problem. Again, you just run your finger, neaten it up. Wood glue does dry clear. Just to make sure that it's extra strong, I'm going to pull this a little bit out, just a little bit on the edge, just to add a bit of wood glue. Take the plug off before we do that, might be a good idea. Going to add just a little bit up there in the corner, so that it dries nice and secure. I'm going to give it a bit of a pinch, but not too much. And that's good. And you can leave that to dry for about half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour, and you should be ready to then move on to adding your supports. While we wait for that to dry, we're going to move on to the next step and just make our drumsticks. And so all you'll need for this is you will need some Curious gum, that's 7 centimeter strip of it. You will need your bag of maize meal, and you will need 2 of your skewers. So as you'll notice, Curious gum is very sticky, and that's why we use it. And something that's nice about it is that it doesn't really mark and doesn't get soft when it's hot, nor does it get hard when it's cold. So it's very effective, but it's very, very sticky. And so that's a bit of a problem when we're hitting the drums, because it might get stuck to the drums. So what we want is we want a connection where it won't stick, but instead will just bounce right off. And so that's what we're going to be now making. And that's why we have our maize meal. So to make the Curious gum less sticky, we're going to add maize meal to it. So what you're going to do is initially just take 2 little dollops. That's actually a little bit too small. You want it to be about the size of a marble. Let's add a little bit even more. So you want it to be nice and big, because it's got to be heavier. The heavier it is, the louder it'll make your drum be, and it's really, really cool. So you want it to be about the size of a marble, which is quite a good amount of Curious gum. You're going to have a little bit left over, and that is absolutely perfect. So what I recommend doing is rolling this into a ball, just like that. You can roll it into a perfect ball by rolling it between your palms, nice and fast, nice and fast. You're going to feel it getting warm between your hands, and you should end up with a bit of a ball. It might have a little creases like that, but that's really okay. Do the same thing with both. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your balls and one of your skewers, and you're going to just shove it in roughly halfway. So if you look at the ball, roughly that far in is how far we're going to move it, and then just squeeze it so that it ends up becoming a little bit ovular. You don't want it to be perfectly round, but a little bit ovular. And then you can kind of mold it into a little bit of a rugby ball shape, and that should be good. Just like that. There we go. You can do that with both of your skewers, with both of your Curious gum balls. Let's push it in. There we go, and pinch it over. Make sure it's got a good grip and that doesn't slide off when you move it around like this, but that it stays on. And remember to mold it into a bit of a rugby ball shape. Just like that. There you go. Now you've got 2 of them, but as you can see, they are still a little bit sticky to the touch. They'll stick together like that, which we definitely don't want. And so to prevent this, we're going to take our bag of maize meal, open it up. You're not going to pour it out. You're going to keep it on your table, or keep it in your hand, just like that. Have it open, and then you're going to take your drumstick that you've made so far and just rub it in the maize meal. Give it a bit of a twist so that it covers everywhere. Make sure that it's nice and submerged, nice and buried, that it's not missing out on any area. And when you take it out, it should look like this. It should be nice and white. It should be very, very gray and have some big pieces, some small pieces, all types. Give it a bit of a blow to get the biggest pieces off. Make sure you're not blowing it onto the table. You're going to make it nice and messy. And then you can actually just rub it in your hands just a little bit, just to get the biggest pieces off. It's still going to be quite dark relative to how the Curious gum looks initially, but this is very good. So as soon as it's like this, it means that it's not going to be as sticky. If you feel it and touch it in your hand, you'll see it's no longer sticky. You can do this with both of your drumsticks. Remember to make it nice and submerged, fully submerged in your maize meal. Don't mess your maize meal, just put it nicely, and let's actually seal it before we blow that drumstick. There we go. Put that to the side. Give it a blow, and then you're good to go. Remember to play with it a little bit and get the biggest pieces off. Maybe rub it just a little bit. Getting the biggest pieces off. You can reshape it every now and then. Maybe make it more like a bullet kind of shape if you would like. That's okay. If you want them to be perfect balls, that's really fine. These at the end of the day are your drumsticks, and you can mold them and shape them to whatever you want. You can end up making a bit of a matchstick kind of shape, or if you want more ball kind of shapes, that's just okay. It's really up to you. I'm gonna turn these into balls just to make them nice and useful. There we go. There you go, that is your drumsticks. They are ready. As you can see, mine are slightly different sizes. So all you can do is, in the initial process of making them, add a little bit more Curious gum from what you have left over. You can add Curious gum to this, but just remember, if you're gonna add, you're gonna have to put it in the maize meal again. There you go, your drumsticks are ready. The next thing we're going to do once your drumsticks have been made and your drum is nice and dry is only on one end. You can remove the elastics for now, put it on the table, nice and ready. I'm actually going to put that to the side, and then grab one of those strips that we cut earlier. You just need one of them for now, and on the flat side, not on the corrugated side, but on the flat side, we're going to just add a bit of glue because we're going to wrap it around our drum housing in a moment. So you can go in a bit of a zigzag kind of shape. Make sure that you get it nice and spread. Being glued on the ends is most important, so maybe put a little bit extra on the ends and give it a nice rub. Make sure that it's nice and spread out on the ends, and then as you go down the drum, as you go down the strip, you can kind of do just like a zigzag pattern, and that should be absolutely perfect. Like I said, spend a bit more time on the ends, not putting too much glue down, but you need to be nice and generous there, getting it all the way to the edges. Kind of make a bit of a box or a square. That should be just fine. Then you can take your glue in again, plug it up because you don't want it to dry on you. You can wipe the excess away. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your drum again, and you're going to take one of the ends of the glue and put it right up against the top. I'm going to put it like this for you, with the corrugations facing outward, just like this. There we go. And you're going to wrap it around the entire drum at the top, like that. Sorry, we went off camera there a bit. There we go. Make it nice and tight. You can make it tight by pinching the two ends together, like so, and then it should tighten around the entire drum. And then you're going to want to put it maybe flat on the table and push them down, just to make sure that it's all the way at the end, at the edge, and then you know that it's nice and flush with the rest of the drum. There we go. You can let that dry and then go to the other side. I actually recommend putting on an elastic before you let it dry, just to make sure that it dries nice and tight. Grab one of the big elastics, the same one that you took off earlier will do just fine. Make sure you put it on and leave it to dry like that. And we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. We're going to take our elastic off. Well, actually, let's first put some glue on this guy, this other strip. Remember being nice and generous on the ends. Going all the way to the edge, and then kind of zigzagging our way across the rest. And then again, being generous on the end, because that's a very important part. That's where it could break off if you didn't put enough glue. There we go. You're going to pull the glue in again, plug it up, and wipe it. Grab your drum again, and then on the other end, the end that doesn't have a strip just yet, you can then put it there. Pull it nice and tight. It should be good. And bring it up to the edge. There we go. Alright, put it down on the table, and you can push it down a little bit to make sure that it's flush with the end. You want a nice straight line there. Alright, you don't want it to be too low down or too high up. You want it nice and flush Alright, and then because these ends are going to want to come off, just put the elastic on to make sure that it dries nice and tight. There we go. You're going to want the elastic kind of sitting in the middle of it. That should be good. And you can see I've done the same thing on this side. Let's just move that over a tad. There you go. And now you can leave this to dry. I would recommend leaving this to dry for a good 20 minutes to half an hour, and then you'll be ready to add your drum skin. So in the meanwhile, you can grab your drum skin as well as your other 10 elastics. If you remember, because 2 of them are being used while this guy is drying. You're going to grab them, and we are essentially going to be feeding them onto our drum skin. The way that you're going to do this is you're going to take one elastic at a time, pinch it into a little bit of a tight bow on the end there, and you're going to feed it through the holes, just like so, right? And then what's important here is that you remember which way you're going. So for example, the one here, which is on the inside of the drum, I'm going to feed through the middle of this one and bring it underneath and pull it to the edge. You want to do exactly the same thing for all of them. And then to make sure it's nice and tight, pull this guy all the way across and then pull outward, and it should be good. You can wiggle it around a bit so that it goes all the way to the bottom. There we go. And you're going to do exactly the same thing 10 times, and by the time we get there, your drum should be nice and dry enough that you can take the other 2 off and add them when you get there. So I'm going to do them all now, and you can follow with me. So when you arrive at this point, you'll notice that we have got 2 holes left and we've run out of elastics. Like I said, it's because they're the ones being used to hold this together while it dries. My drum should be dry enough that I can take these off, and so I'm going to do that and use them on our drum skin. There we go. And do exactly the same thing now again. Feed it through the bottom, put it through, give it a bit of a wiggle. And you can actually mute that part, because yeah, I'm following it anyway, so I think I'll go from here. Alright, so all 12 of your elastics are now on your drum skin, and all the knots are facing the same way. It's nice and neat, very good for the strength of your drum. We can now move on to the part where we are going to be putting it onto our drum, and so your drums should be ready and nice and dry, so you can grab them. Alright. And this part is nice and tricky, so make sure that you pay attention. You're going to position your drum skin so that either side is facing upward. It really doesn't matter, it's your choice whether you want the knots facing outward or inward. That's okay. You're going to center your drum skin with your drum, like so. So as you can see, it's in the middle, right in the middle. And then you're going to have to do this very carefully. Hold on top with your one hand and feed the elastic underneath, like so. Alright, I recommend that so this is the elastic I'm pulling, where this elastic over here is, draw a line with your imagination down to there, and that's where you want to attach this elastic, over there. Alright, and do the same on both sides. Alright, be careful, still hold with this hand, and then move right across to the other one on the other end, across here, and do the same thing on this side, so that your drum skin doesn't pull off or pull over. So remember, here's the one that I'm moving, here's the one that I'm putting on. 1, 2, this is where I want it to be, so where my finger down there is, that's where I'm aiming. Alright, so I'm going to put it there, like so, and like that. Alright, and so now I've got 2 of my elastics on, the drum skin is on either side tied down, really good, and that's what you want it to look like. It's going to make a bit of a triangle shape, and that's absolutely perfect. Alright, then from here we are going to we're not going to move to this one. Instead we're going to count 1, 2, 3. That's the one you now want to fix down. Doing the same thing with your hand on top. Alright, you're going to hold it down, move it across, and remember you're aiming for the one that's 2 across, so this is the one we're putting down. So 1, 2, draw an imaginary line, that's where I'm aiming to put the elastic. Alright, down over there, that's good. And same thing on this side, that's good. All right, now we're going to move to the other side, opposite the one we just put down. And we're still holding it down here. We're now going to be at this elastic on the other side. So if you look at this one, that's fixed. All right, still holding 1, 2, 3. That's the one you want to pull down now. All right, so you're going to grab that one, and we're aiming for the one that is 2 over, 2 to its neighbor. So that one we're fixing down, 1, 2. We're aiming for there, down over there, and feed it in. And we're going to do the same thing at the bottom. 1, 2, we're aiming for over there. That should be good. And now, as you can see, we've got nearly a square. It's a little bit neat. You can just move it over slightly, and that should be good. There we go. So it should look a bit like a square because we've fixed down our four first ones. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now from here, you can literally do exactly the same thing for all of them. So you can just pull them down. And there we go, we have fixed all of our drums, all of our elastics on. Our drum skin is now on, it's nice and tight. And there at the bottom, we've got like a bit of a web going on. It's actually quite satisfying to look at, isn't it? So from here, we're gonna notice that if you grab your drum skin, it is a working drum. However, it isn't quite as loud as it could be. So let's make it a little bit tighter by adding a rim. And for this, you're gonna need your tubing, as well as a small part of the bottom of one of your sticks. All right, so simply take a craft knife. We recommend just rolling it a little bit, like so. Be very careful when you're doing this. This is easiest. Just cut a little groove. And then as you can see, there's a nice little groove over there. You're just gonna snap it like this. Oh. Let's put it off, there we go. You can put that aside, and now we've got a piece of our skewer. You're gonna put the one end inside the one side of the tube, and the other end is going to connect to it, and that's good. If you would like to, you can add a little bit of your leftover Curious gum. Just grab a small little bit, just a tiny bit, give it a bit of a rub, put it in between your two tubes, like so, and then you can squash it all together. And that should be good. It should be nice and fixed now. Won't be much of a problem. Then you're gonna grab your drum, and now this part you've got to be careful of is on the bottom on the inside, because we've left enough space to fit our arms, our hands in there. You're going to put your tube in, like so, into your drum. It's going to fit nice and loose. It's going to sit quite close to the bottom over there. That's okay. And what we're essentially going to try to do now is putting your hand in the bottom. You're going to force the tube to go between that piece of wood and the drum skin. So as you can see there, it's kind of appearing, and you're going to put it on top of the drum skin, on top of the wooden disc, underneath the drum skin, and do that all the way around. This is going to make it nice and tight. It's also going to make the area that the drum skin is sitting on a little bit smaller, which means it's going to sound even better. Alright, so you're making it tighter and you're adding sound, and then just run your finger along inside. You can feel when it's on top of that piece of wood. You'll definitely know. Make sure that the entire thing is round and you spread it out evenly, so you can see now through our drum skin that the tube is there, and it's sitting just above this one, but on the other side, right? And so you can't see it down there anymore. You won't be able to see it there because it's now tucked behind the piece of wood. So from here, all we're gonna do is just enjoy making some awesome beats. Congratulations, you have got a working drum. Make some awesome sounds. If you look at this at our instruction kit, there's a few questions here that we've asked you. Feel free to figure them out and see what you guys can do, and enjoy your drum kit and make some awesome beats. We'll see you guys next time. Stay curious. Bye.